Snarty's here. First, thanks for coming, guys. We appreciate these meetings every year. They're nice to have. We'll make it quick and simple here, Scott, if you want to lead us off.
Yeah, I think.
You want to introduction first?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Whichever end wants to start first, go ahead.
Kevin.
Oh, I'm Kevin Westhouse, the Utility Director.
Michael Page, Alderman, District 3.
John Downing, City Council, District 1.
This is Jeff Rupert when he shows up.
I think that's what I do.
I'm Diane O'Dean, I'm at large.
You guys were too quick.
Or set Alderman at large. Dan Hall, Mayor.
From the City Administrator.
David Bell, Superintendent.
Myers. Lynette Coy, Director of Finance and Utilities.
I'm Alan Tuckton-Hagen, a school board member. Zach Campbell, Student Success Coordinator, District Safety Coordinator.
Lindsay Curtis, Allison Page, Board Member. Monica Bull, Board Member.
County Municipal Library Director.
Matt Millen.
Perspective Management staff. John Solinger, former ICMA Management Fellow, so I know exactly what he's doing. Finance Director for the city.
Amanda Taylor, Administrative Assistant. Jennifer Person, Chief of Staff of the City.
Amy Peterson, Community Development Director.
Over Chief of Police.
All right. Well, the agenda, we rotate back and forth between locations for those format. I'm not sure how many of you are used to this format. Is there anybody that was not on school board or council last time we met? You were so you're kind of previous veteran, so that's good. So, city will run through some updates that Ken and I had talked about that are usually of interest to the two boards. We'll do City of River Falls strategic initiatives, talk about the fire station library project, and provide some general housing and development updates, and then the school district. As indicated that they'll talk about school district strategic plan, the facilities, school safety, and I think we took attendance. That's part of the school safety. So, and then we'll, as per usual, probably have a very limited time at the end to kind of discuss anything you want to talk about future or follow up. A lot of times what it is follow up for staff, what things you want the staffs to continue to work on or think about working on. We'll adjourn. The city council kind of has a hard stop at 6:15. We've got a council meeting. We expect thousands to be here for the budget. So we've got to get prepared for that. So with that, so our strategic initiatives include a connected community, economic vitality, financial sustainability, and quality of municipal services. So we'll run through just quickly some of those things. Bullet points that under connected community, the three main strategic initiatives are Kinney River Corridor Phase 1. So that's completing the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers feasibility study and then doing project design. That is approximately $20 million. The project is $20 million. The design is probably $2 million. And so we're really pleased with the progress that had been being made. Now we think once federal government's back open, we'll continue. We also have an official partnership with the National Service that we've initiated on this. So good news on all fronts for the Kinney River Corridor plan. If you need more information on that, we have quite a bit on our website about the history of the project and kind of what's envisioned there. We're also working on a Safe Streets Action Plan. That is a plan intended to help position us for significant federal infusion of money through their transportation projects, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 million implemented. The first step, though, is to do an action plan and kind of get a list of things finalized so that we know what the strategies are for implementing, and then we match that with hopefully federal gas tax funding. And we have a committee, I believe Mr. Page is on that, and I don't know who's from the schools at this point, but you recall? So they'll work through that along with some community members and then bring that back. Then Glen Park Phase 2 is one that we expect to work on. So pretty significant refurbishment of Glen Park a number of years ago. Community was not able to go forward with all of our hopes and dreams. And so Phase 2 would likely include the centralized community playground, improvements to the restrooms on the east side of the park, potential for a sports court, ice rink, improvements to walking trails and other things. That will be determined by the park board, kind of what funds are available looking forward. Excited to kind of get back into Glen Park. The success of the first phase was substantial, matched the kind of what we were hoping for, and based on surveys of the community, they thought it worked out pretty good too. So kept the character of the park, which was important, but some of the features, utilities. On the economic vitality, we began work on downtown plan. A lot of the utilities that you don't see downtown are 100 years plus old. Unfortunately, we have had pretty devastating infestation of ash trees, and that's the 100% of what the species is down the middle of Main Street there. So we know that things are going to look a lot different. We know we need to do some upgrades. So we're starting the very initial stages of working with the community on what that's going to look like going forward. Where we're at for phasing is we're basically doing survey work, mapping, and getting a good inventory of exactly what we're at, what we have to deal with before we move into design projects where we start talking about what the and the construction is still quite a few years out, probably 2029 or 2030, which will be here soon. Council also directed us to continue work on infill on the existing corporate parks, and so we've been marketing and promoting opportunities, in particular in Whitetail and Sterling Mountains, and I think we're going to have some pretty good success with that over the next 12 to 18 months. We should have a number of projects underway in the remaining lots out there. And we've also are supporting the Innovation Center, which is a joint project of the university, the college, and River Falls Economic Development Corporation. So they've got preliminary indication that they're going to be awarded another $2 million grant to do an expansion of that for additional entrepreneur space, in particular an expansion of their food ready space, and also some small scale, like 2,000 to 3,000 square foot manufacturing spaces, which we have a waiting list for. And then on the financial sustainability, as all the normal things we do for long range planning, one of the specific projects is to take a look at impact fees, which they haven't been looked at or adjusted since 2000 or 2000. I'm trying to think of the date. Summer 01, I think. It's been a long time, so we're going to do it. Then on the quality municipal services, we've got some pretty substantial projects there. This time they're pretty visible. So we've had some projects in the past that were pretty substantial, and they ended up being mostly underground. The fire station and library are obviously two pretty substantially visible projects. $10 million investment into the fire station and over $4 million to start, likely about $7.5 million total on the library project. And then public safety communications are weak point in the state of Wisconsin, and so since we're in the state of Wisconsin, we kind of suffer the consequences of, I think it's fair to say, not a very robust statewide approach to public safety communications. We've been really resourced well as a community, so we've been able to kind of basically keep our system ahead of where the state is, but we're in line for quite a bit of investment. in the neighborhood of $1 million investment that's required to keep the radios working. We've done some things on the school safety side to try to make sure we have good repeaters and other things to be able to kind of get through some of the important buildings in town, get the radio signals through those. We've worked with St. Croix County on a new tower that we've done near the new water tower in Whitetail. So we've done a number of those nibbling to kind of have a function. We have a functional system and option. We're getting to the point so much bigger. We just invested, I think, Josh, $400,000 in radios. So like handheld portable radios. We've got a bunch of fluorescent green ones for the fire department. And then the police department. So we've outfitted those with dual band radios, which is going to give them increased functionality. And I think we have some of the existing RF radios, VHF radios might be to the school.
Yep.
Hey, Scott, can I ask a question for the middle?
I think that's fine.
I'm curious. I'm just curious, do we coordinate at all with the Twin Cities metro area on emergency communications since we're part of the Twin Cities metro area? I know after the Twin Cities has been tone on this. So is there any way we can be a part of that, or do we just work with us?
We require primarily in Wisconsin is the short answer, I think. There is connections between Minnesota and Wisconsin. They're not robust, with the exception of their advanced medical.
Yeah, probably all the ambulances.
So
yeah.
We are getting advanced medical dispatch from Twin Cities where they have a very robust system, but it's basically bounced from their really good system onto our okay system out to this vehicles. The ambulances actually are duals. They have the ability to be on the Minnesota system, Wisconsin, which is helpful. But they're stuck kind of with our system, which is, it's kind of the analog versus digital. I don't know if that's a really good way to explain it, but so the short answer is no, we don't benefit much from the robust system in Minnesota. And Wisconsin, again, is pretty far behind.
That was all redone after the bridge went down. There was a big effort to upgrade.
Yeah, Minnesota took advantage of post 9/11. The federal money for emergency communications was very significant. But to tap into that, you had to do it at the state regional level. You really couldn't tap into it locally. So the counties had a hard time getting the money. In Minnesota, they kind of had it all set up. So we can learn from them, aspire to do that. But people should understand the system. We're always a little concerned when we put the stuff on that people are like, oh, your system is broken, it doesn't work. That's not where we're at. We certainly accept that it's not to be eventually, and also just the interoperability with Minnesota would be helpful. First we got. And then public utility infrastructure assessment. Is that we're kind of looking at our capacity and scope of public utilities, what we have in store for electric, water, and also looking at what's going on in natural gas and fibers, which we don't, directly control or have an interest in. I'm just trying to understand what that's going to look like. So, fire station. A lot of you know that the current station's been in use continuously since 1955. We're going to keep this part of existing station, but essentially everything from that wall over to Elm City is going to be demolished, and then this is all new construction, including repairing but not building a future third story that would be if we ever had to go to non-volunteer people, you would have housing there. So this is all garage bay. This is the support center and training tower. It's brand new. And then the spaces that we're retaining are going to be all the offices, like including there's going to be a new public meeting room similar to this. It's actually a little bit larger. And then you can't see the lobby. There's kind of a lobby right off of this slide. So we can use that. And then this construction likely will give us an option to do site, which may help us with flexibility. So we did get a $1.4 million USDA grant. It's a full remodel of the existing space and new construction of this. And we are government to open back up because the USDA funding is contingent on approval. So we're patiently waiting for the Department of Agriculture to get their appropriations bill done, which it looks like might be as soon as tomorrow. Library is another project where we're trying to renew the existing gift that the community has given us decades ago, and so there's no real changes. Actually, I think there's 0 changes to the physical footprint of the building. So the building that you see is the building that we have. Potentially the solarium gets a new roof or something, but basically it's what you see is what you get. We have ample space, but we're just making use of the space better, and essentially carpet, paint, lights, all that is getting refreshed throughout the entire building to kind of give us another 30 years of great use here. So these are just concept drawings. We didn't bring any samples, but I'm sure Tanya would be happy to give any of you a tour and check in at the library. Right now there's a lot of gray walls and they haven't brought a lot of the color in yet, but I think some of the casework and stuff is starting to get in. So we're going to be in this for a while. So the fire station will take at least 12 months from the start to the end. They're a little bit more optimistic, but I think there's 0 chance that they can get it done in 6 months or something like they talked. So probably at the end of 26, we'll be able to move into the fire station. And the library, it's got a little bit more rapid time frame we'll be kind of under construction until about the summer-ish next year. So that you'll see a pretty substantial, there's a capital campaign currently underway to support it. Their library foundation that's supporting that project. We'll have some pretty awesome announcements to make here over the next few months. This is just 2 pictures. This is the children's area, if you can't tell. So the windows kind of are all kept, if you know that area, and there with your kids. But the space gets opened up quite a bit, and then there's some newer support spaces. Sensory, are we calling it the sensory room? Or
Comfort room.
Comfort room. Oh, I should know. I think we just had the campaign in that too. So they give to the comfort room, which is kind of neat because of the origin. If you had a chance to read Jane Buckley's book, kind of interesting, the origin of the downtown restaurant. How that turned into a library, so it's pretty cool. And then this is, I think, this is from Main Street towards the entrance. Oops. One thing, and I'm definitely going to miss things that I plan to say. I'm just going to keep moving, try to move rapidly through it. Superintendent fell an opportunity to do his presentation, and then I can come back to it. People are like, hey, I want to ask about that. So we did a study in 2018 and 2022 to try to understand if what we thought we were seeing is what we were seeing. It confirmed that some of the things we thought we were seeing in housing were true, and some of the things were less true. But generally speaking, River Falls growth. River Falls is growing, while housing demand is outpacing supply, not just because of our natural growth, but just because of the changes families are put together and their needs and the aging population, just demographics. So the good news for us is we're a community that's still attracting young adults, not just seniors. Those are the 2 groups, that we saw a lot of demand or still seeing a lot of demand from. So, and young adult meaning not just college students, but newer professionals, people starting their life here. either attached or unattached or with family. Affordability is a major concern. We've had really good growth in income, also median income in falls, which has been a good sign. Wages are up and families are making more, generally speaking, but the housing prices are outpacing that wage. And so that's one of the things the study said to keep an eye on. And these are the points I pulled out. There's other points that council or other people have presented. These are the ones I chose to pull out for tonight. One of the bullet points was a wider range of housing options are needed because people need to look at what they have or how they need to think about how people want to live going forward. And so 3,500 square foot single family ranch houses, a 3rd-acre lot is not, that might have been great. But that's not necessarily the future. And so one of the lessons of the study was we should be thoughtful about what the future is going to bring for housing all over the country. And what does that mean for us? And so we need to think about that. So we have emphasized density. We've emphasized you've seen a lot of twin families and other styles of houses that kind of keep that affordability and also give people a choice. So this is not about me, but hopefully your eyes are on. So the main thing to understand here is these 3 are housing types. So single family for sale, multifamily for sale, multifamily for rent. And then this last category is senior, which I'll explain a little bit how that might actually be interpreted into these other categories. So the top of the light blue is what the projected needs were by 2030, and this was projected in 2022. So basically what you need over the next 6 to 8 years. The dark blue, we're monitoring what's been permitted by category. So it's true that we've had a lot of houses and apartments, and it's true that we haven't had enough apartments or houses. This was just to keep up with equilibrium demand. So this isn't assuming like this grand migration to River Falls or some change in some new headquarters locating here that needs 1,000 employees. This was just what you have the overall economy and now seniors here. This is the senior specific housing is what we're tracking here. So if it has an age restriction, we're putting it in here. Understanding that there are seniors in this group of, I can't read the number, 800, lots of people, 800 units, that any of these 3 other types would work for them too, right? Now, if they need memory care, they're going to be in the senior housing category. They're not easily going to jump over to multifamily rental. But I think you get my point is we probably could take some of these put it over in the senior category to show that we're making a little progress, but we are not surveying households and if they're a senior or not. We'll get that data next time we do census or other things. And we'll get that data actually in 2026 when we do the next study. So just the main point here is it's true that we've been building a lot of houses. It's also true that we haven't been building enough houses or apartments. And that's just if we want our kids, our nephews, our neighbors, our friends to be able to have housing. That's not like thousands of people moving from Chicago. Whatever thing people have in their mind. It's what the study demonstrated. So this is recent. Upland, Current, those 2 are kind of traditional apartments. South Point, first edition would have been 28 single and 2 families, so that's down by comforts of home. Sterling Ponds Village is 20 twin homes, so that would have been just past the church there where they put in those. So those are all, as far as I know, that's all completed and open and ready to go. Then recently completed, which may be in different phases of occupancy, is Ivy Meadows had 6th and 7th edition. Kind of traditional single family, and then Dawes Place was 112 rental townhomes. And then under construction or partially completed would be Oak Hill, which would be here on the west end of the community. It's 110 single and two family. It's primarily single. There's probably, I can think of the walking past there, there's probably 14 twin homes or 16 twin homes, and the rest is primarily a single family. Might be off by plus or minus 8 or. Thompson Heights is 86 twin homes, so that would be the Derrick construction project that's off of Paulson. Brook Green is, I think, what's pictured. I don't have a caption, so I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure it is. It looks like Brook Green. So that's 100 rental townhomes. So that's a pretty sizable development that's on the corner of Radium and Paulson. The Preserve is 24 twin homes. That's under construction right now off of Hull. That would be nearest the bridge over the Kinney. So that would be the farthest east. And then Sycamore 2, phase 2, or I don't know that, did they call it Sycamore? TWO?
Yeah, phase 2.
They're called Sycamore TOO. Senior housing. So that's, there is language in the housing study. Just showing you that I didn't put up the bar chart, but there was a specific demand projection for memory care as one of the fastest growing things that we're going to need to do. It was actually the only category of housing in 2018 study that we didn't have a deficit on. And it was like by one unit. Like and now we have a deficit again because that population is growing. So 24 more memory care units and 8 independent living duplexes as part of their project. And then the council just approved Man Valley residential. So right in here on the map, familiar school district property is here. So just across the greenway is 233 units. That includes a 50 unit tax credit, low to moderate income housing. 2 buildings that are, I would say, traditional underrate apartments, and then 2 to 3 of attached townhome with garages, similar to what's it's Windmill, right? No, what's the one next to Sanctus? Milltown. Yeah, that's ours. Milltown. So the townhomes that are kind of attached, stacked with garages and porches. So that'll be, I would say, a true mixed family types, mixed housing there. And then the council's reviewing again the general developments. It's a 92 single and 2 family units. So that one is off of Powell between East and West Drive. Across from and then we just want to say thank you. I apologize in advance today because there's way more partnerships than this, but I just grabbed a few. Yeah, it's not exhausted, but we just want to mention that we appreciate. We've had really good partnerships. These are our famous engineering department here at the career fair, and apparently they were quite I heard that they were quite popular. So people like stormwater and wastewater, and it might have been that Tyler was talking about drones and stuff too, so or GIS. So we appreciate, and certainly we think we're giving the public really good value by using the public spaces and facilities at cross purposes, and we do that with the least amount of bureaucracy and headache as possible. So appreciate that we can do that. I think that's it. Any quick questions before I turn it over to Superintendent? Good. Okay. I think we need to see that. what year is it? Try that again. No, I can't. You're right there. No, when I was 25, I didn't.
Somebody help me.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity from the school district perspective to share some updates about all happening within the Fall School District. We have some leaders within the district as well as board members that will hopefully help me out the presentation. But I think that the general theme is really highlighting some of the collaborations that we have with the city and recognizing those and maybe providing some detail for both the council and our school board of how those work and how they really contribute to us achieving our goals as a school district within the city. So we thought three main areas would be really strong to speak to. The first is talking a little bit about our strategic plan, which we're kind of smack dab in the middle of, 2 to 27, and to chat a little bit about not just what our strategic plan goals are, but ways that we monitor gets of those goals and how we prioritize that work. We're in an institution where we have 500 employees. We serve 3,400 kids. So there's a lot of people that have ideas of what their priorities are. And so one of the most important things that board does is help us really zero in on what is actually most important. We want to celebrate and highlight our facilities project, give you an update on nearing substantial completion for facilities that were associated with the referendum question that was passed in 2024 and was able to be, like I said, substantially completed on a lot of those pieces. There's always a few final details, as I'm sure that everybody can attest to, but we're really excited about the expansion of the spaces. That's one piece of it, but also what it has done to make our buildings safer and make our buildings useful for much longer. There's a lot of, we gotta say, the non-exciting elements of a project like this or a series of projects like this that make our buildings more efficient, make the environment better for learning, that maybe don't go as seen as well as some of the larger addition parts of the project. So we want to highlight both of those for you. And then a big piece of everything we do around planning is school safety. So there's some elements of the facilities project that we'll highlight tonight, as well as the collaborations around all the different spheres of safety. I mean, I think people think a lot immediately around this idea of physical safety, but there's other elements that we consider when we are zeroing in on having a safe and welcoming environment for our students and our families. And tonight we'll share a few of those other pieces. So with that, I'm going to start with strategic planning. And you want to start with this piece? Or do you want me to go through and then I'll have you do that? Yep. It's beautiful. So this is our kind of plan on a page, what our mission and values are, and then our goals. And just like any school district or any organization, when you come together and you set a 5-year plan, you ultimately have lots of elements in it. But then each of our goals, which are listed at the bottom, there's 4 or 5 sub goals to 34 big things that we're trying to accomplish over the 5 years. And that can be complex. So one thing that we really have tried to do is zero in on very specific bullet points, which are really about Fall School District, how those goals, there's a lot of crossover with those goals. So what are our biggest rocks? What are our most important elements? And the first piece is that we're about learning, we're about academic achievement. And that's a commitment to academic growth for all students, wherever they start with us, whether they start with us in 4K or if they move in 7th grade, we're really committed to getting to know that student and understanding what their needs are and tracking and setting the goal to have them make sure that they're growing academically each year. Investing in college and career planning experiences for students. So they start to make, as they progress through the school district, they start to make those connections to what they want to do once they graduate and giving them the experiences and in a really safe place to have an opportunity to understand what that looks like. And then around systems of support for students, once we identify they have needs, that we are having a response to those needs. So if we have data that says we have a group of students or individual students that's struggling, what are we doing? How are we responding to those needs? So that's one piece. The other piece, the middle piece there is works. And we know in our work, the core piece of how we accomplish any of our goals is our staff. And so we really want a supportive, engaging environment for our employees. We want to be a school district of choice, not just in Western Wisconsin, but in the tri-state region. And we feel like the community is a huge piece of how we can set that up. And so when we talk about works, we're talking about a collaborative teaching culture, high expectations for what we would expect for teachers, but then supporting them with mentorship and coaching, having a regionally competitive salary and benefits package so people can see River Falls not just as a place to work, but a place to live. And there's obviously restrictions and challenges that go with it, but we are very intentional in how we set that up. And then we really want to build a strong culture and climate within our community, not just for our teachers, not just for our administrative team, but for all employees who all play a part in the overall district. And then we're about connections, and that's student connections and community connections. Really what we want to make sure is that our schools are a place for our students to be engaged. They're engaged with their community. Their families are engaged through transparent and open communication. And we have connections with the wonderful post-secondary institutions that we have within our district. So I've talked a little bit about this, and I won't put the link there, but for each of our priority areas, we've zeroed on culling data, finding data that monitors how we're doing in each of these areas. So we talk about academic growth. What are the data points that we're going to look at? And then from those data points, how are we going to respond? And we know when you look at academic growth, there's a billion different ways that you can look at it. There's a billion different answers to why students are growing or they're not growing. And one thing that we're really looking at is what's in our sphere of control as a school district? What can we have influence over? And really zero in our work around that influence. So we're prioritizing making sure that our teachers have an opportunity to authentically collaborate. Teachers who are teaching the same subject area or grade levels have an opportunity to come together and share their learning, share their goals, and work together. So we end up with a very consistent set of learning across our different schools and our different grade levels and subject areas. So we want consistent, high quality teaching and learning. We want to deliver a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So if you're learning in English language arts in 5th grade at Rocky Branch, it won't be exactly the same as 5th grade at Westside, but there's enough collaboration and consistency curriculum that when they all come to our middle school, 6th grade, they're in a good spot. And as I stated before, we want to have a consistent framework that responds. We know that students come with different sets of needs, and we want to have a system that can respond to those academic needs and those behavioral needs. Talk about engagement. It's prioritizing a safe and welcoming environment. We know the connection that student academic growth has with their participation in co-curricular activities. So we're really encouraging and promoting that. That doesn't mean just supporting the traditional areas of co-curricular activities. It also means looking out and expanding and finding what are some areas of students that aren't going to participate in those co-curricular activities, and how can we find that same connection to school that some of our other students already have. And that's critically important. We've touched on this in meetings here before, but just the emphasis of character education in all of our buildings, and finding ways to make those connections for students so they understand there's a consistent set of expectations of how we do things in the district, and that's a big piece of that is character education. And then really this focus is continuous improvement. When we get feedback from stakeholders, it's generally pretty good. When we get feedback from employees and students, it's generally pretty good. But I don't think we're a school district that's okay with generally pretty good, right? So we're thinking through how do we continuously improve in the areas of how we communicate with our stakeholders, how we elicit feedback from families, how we have a positive school culture, not just for our kids, but for our staff. And then the last piece too, I talked a little bit about this employee satisfaction. And what I'm not going to touch on is the link. The link shows some data points that we look at each year within these areas. So within employee satisfaction, we're looking at specific feedback from employees. We're looking at where we regionally rank within salaries and compensation with our local competitors. When we talk about academic growth, we're looking at how we are doing on sort of our standardized tests as one mark, but also looking at goals that we have set at school levels, academic goals that will contribute. So looking at the larger picture, how we compare regionally, but also within each school setting specific goals, because we think it's critical. So like I said, we're kind of right in the middle, or nearing the completion of our current strategic plan. And so Stacy is just going to talk a little bit about kind of what happens beyond 2027.
Exactly, because once our current strategic plan is over, we want to have the next one in place so that we don't have a gap between them. So the bullet points up here will outline for you some of the components and then the timeline that we have for achieving the planning to be able to have the new strategic plan in place. So the first thing what we'll do is develop a visioning and planning process and timeline. I expect that will be around January of 2027. During that time, we're going to be assessing some of we'll make the plan in January, but then the next step will be to assess the current realities. Some of those things will be funding, the needs of our students, capacity of our buildings to support high quality teaching. Those are all things that we will need to be studying in order to have the information to go forward. We'll also investigate some of the state and national trends, particularly related to education. We will need to look at the effect of private voucher seats, for example, what that will mean for school districts like ours, enrollment data in general, and then what the trends are, what we anticipate falls will definitely be information that we are gathering to inform. We will also be very intentional about seeking stakeholder feedback. So while the board will be adopting and monitoring this plan, we want to ensure that this plan reflects the values of our community and the values that our people expect to have evident in this district. So we will figure out likely a variety of ways to engage the community and to get that. And then, of course, we plan to adopt it. So we will adopt that plan in December of 2027 so that it is ready to go in January of 2020. I hope that what you notice in this plan is that we are going to be very intentional, going to be informed, and we are striving to make sure that this plan is reflective of the values and goals in our community. So that's what our next steps will be beyond 2027.
Thank you, Stacey. So the next piece, just a facilities project update. Last Tuesday, a week ago, we had an open house that showcased a couple of our spaces. So this is kind of I guess I would say where we are now versus where we were like last spring. It feels really good to be on this side of it. Doesn't mean you're completely done. Doesn't mean that some of those stressors aren't there, but we're feeling really excited about where we're at as a project. So I kicked off the school year. We talked a lot about this concept of this summer was a season of patience, right? We really appreciated our maintenance, custodial, transportation, our instructional staff, our teachers, our educational assistants and support staff. We're just super adaptable and willing to go above and beyond in different ways because we had a pretty aggressive timeline to get the work done that we needed to get done. And I think kind of a non-negotiable for us was we didn't want to interrupt kind of the normal schedule for the summer. We were very clear with our partners on that. And we also wanted to make sure that we had our kids club opportunity. Let's make sure we had summer school opportunities. So we follow those pieces around as well as being in all of those things. A lot of patience and express appreciation for our employees, but then also just of the city to work with us on certain elements that sometimes are unforeseen that need to get done when you're doing a pretty big building project and maybe you're expecting it and always super responsive and helpful. So we definitely appreciate that. We were on track and on time, always a few surprises. And then just the fact that our instructional area is ready for the start of school and then the other additions were put in. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lynette to add any
Yeah, it's dangerous. I said, and with something. As Steve mentioned, these projects came from a $28 million referendum that was passed in February of 24. And most of those projects that were on that list will be substantially completed and are substantially completed. We do have some remaining projects from that list that will be completed in summer of 26, but pretty minimal of those. And I don't know if you want to get through this. So one of those, as Dave mentioned, a couple of those were very visible projects. However, probably the majority of those are things you don't necessarily see or feel unless you're in the build, in our buildings daily. Deferred maintenance and lighting upgrades and energy efficiency things. But one of the very visible projects that we've raised to the police transportation center. So this is really the hub of what happens at the bus garage, if you will. We do still have what a little guy that visited our transportation last week told us was where the buses sleep. We still have those buildings that we for many years, and they are outdated. But we're really appreciative to have this new building where all of our bus drivers are sort of just headquartered out of. Our mechanics. Those are the two mechanics bays that you can see the doors. We have our buildings and ground staff that were in sort of a little building across the street. They've moved over there, so they have a nice office space. And you can see a really nice gathering space for our bus drivers. And boy, are they happy. It's been a long time coming. So another very visible project was our gym. So this is the main performance gym at Falls High School. This was actually paid for not with referendum funds, but we were able to get this done during the summer too. So it was great to be able to showcase it on the street. And then another really visible project was the addition of our multi-purpose room and a remodel of the weight room. And so when Scott mentioned facility uses with the city and the school district, this is one of those spaces. The gym is one of those spaces. Dave was at the high school last week when we had the open house. And although it was sort of a sleepy time for the school district activities going on, there were things going on in every space that you could see at high school. So it's a very, very busy place. And so it's great that these new spaces support what's happening in the school district and also all of our community programs as well. So some pictures. And then another visible space is our high school tennis courts. So there, or if you haven't, take a walk out there. We've got a really cool new space there, a viewing area down the middle. So, a really nice upgrade to that. Some less visible projects, Ranch Elementary got some lighting and security doors upgrades, and then a new intellectual disabilities classroom for some kiddos. So we're happy to do that. West Side again, some lighting upgrades, bathroom upgrades, making them ADA compliant, and then some cabinetry in all of the classrooms. So storage is always a challenge, especially in elementary schools, that we were able to add some storage for them. Meyer Middle School, a lot of HVAC upgrades there, things you can't see from these pictures, but also some lighting upgrades that you can sort of see. So that's what was going on. Lots of good stuff.
So the last piece we're going to highlight is just school district safety collaborations, and then kick us off.
We take safety very seriously, and as Scott mentioned earlier about our cooperation we've had for years with our SRO officers, which are really important. I think most people might assume that that's sort of the kind of people who step in when we have a problem and help us with enforcing the rules and regulations, but actually the primary impact of those SRO officers is preventative, and it's a significant impact on helping us avoid those kinds of legal confrontations later on. So anyway, that's one. But our approach is really multifaceted in school safety. It's physical, emotional safety, certainly as it relates to technology and those kinds of things. And there's a lot of things here that we can talk about, but don't really have a lot of time to do a deep dive in. So we want to highlight just a few examples. Lynette's going to talk about school safety as it relates to facilities. Zach Campbell is going to talk about target supports the high school designed to strengthen student attendance. And then Nate Sherman's going to talk about the speak out reporting system. So, Lynette.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned, kind of some of these photos, we did some added security doors. And, you know, it's something that none of us really like to face the reality of, but it's, some of those doors are to be able to, in an emergency, section off portions of our building and keep any bad actors from being able to access additional portions of our building and serve, you know, by the touch of a button, by the help, all of that. So we were able to do that. Also increase some of our cyber security as well, which I would call a little bit of physical safety. Lead into that, but some of our cyber infrastructure, technology infrastructure to help keep what's happening through the interwebs and put that a little more safe. So,
Pretty significant upgrades to surveillance cameras, but not just new cameras, a new system. As you are aware, those each year become more sophisticated, and so this allowed us to kind of have an upgrade, which allows our administrative team and other people, SOOs and other people have access to new spaces. And then integration of some of our safety systems. So whether it's our PA system, whether it's the safety doors that Lynette was alluding to, there's a better integration between those systems. So we feel really excited. Obviously, we're not going to get into super big detail about all those safety pieces, but definitely something that we feel gives us an opportunity to respond. There's no system that is a perfect system. We can play the what if game. All we want, we talk about safety, but what we're excited about is there was substantial upgrades in each of the spaces that have kids. Thankful that the facilities projects allow us to do that.
Well, I'd like to say too, I was at the high school for swimming with the kids, and at the exit there, that new building is huge. It's very impressive. And where the kids exit there's 4 monitors now, and the thoughtfulness that went into that the kids can sit there and look at the monitor and say, "Is my parent here yet?" Right? To pull up to that cul-de-sac and they can see if the vehicle's there. I thought that was great.
It's really cool. The learning curve we have now is we taught everyone during construction to drop their kids up at the, what we call So they learned that, and now they don't realize they're such good followers. In a circle where we now want them to go because it's a safe motion. So they kind of get that one. I appreciate you mentioning that. That was a neat idea and interview.
one of the other cool safety things related to transportation center is we had an opportunity to upgrade from an analog to a cellular radio system. And now that program allows our transportation director and assistant transportation director to see on a monitor where all of our buses are. Live feed maps. So that's been really helpful too for student safety. We get calls, from parents wondering, is the bus late, concerned, so he can answer those questions. So yeah, it's really nice.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nate Sherman. I apologize for being late to district committee meeting that I was leading. I would have just as well been enjoying some pizza with all of you, but I didn't make it. Yeah. So I'm going to speak to you about Speak Up, Speak Out, which is a program that was put in place with a partnership from the Department of Justice and the Office of School Safety. It's an anonymous tip line reporting system that students, parents, and or community members can use, whether it's through the website, through an app, or by making a phone call. This program was put in place because, unfortunately, we've had too many acts of school violence in our country. And one of the things that we've learned from that is that oftentimes people are aware that these acts are going to take place and they don't do anything about it. In fact, the most recent data that I've read is that 81% of the time when there's an act of school violence, somebody knows. So we need to make sure that our kids and our families and our community members have access to us and to the police and to emergency services. And Speak Up, Speak Out is one of those. So the way this works is that any student, staff, parent, community member can report an anonymous tip, like I said, through the app, through online, through a phone call. And this is a 24/7-hour service that people monitor the tips that come in. There can be communication back and forth, so it's not just a tip that's left, but if they need to ask more questions of the person reporting the tip, they can. If there's immediate safety concerns, those safety concerns can be passed on to emergency personnel within the city of River Falls. But the school resource officers and administrators are tapped into those. So we get those reports to us in real time. Sometimes the tips are things that we have to act on immediately. Sometimes they're things that we can act on in the near future. But whatever kind of tip they are, we are fully aware of it. We get these tips regularly, and Speak Up, Speak Out does a really nice job of sorting through them and identifying what level of risk they are so that we know how to respond. That was the main thing I wanted to talk about. I want to also make you aware just really quickly that in addition to this technology, we also have a technology program that's called Securely, that is a online data monitoring system. It's also something that our school administrators are tapped into. So if students are searching or sending emails with keywords that trigger a response, we're notified about it. I can just tell you that today I received about 35 of them because a health class was investigating mental health concerns at the middle school. So in that case, it wasn't super helpful to us, but it is when yesterday I got an email or was responded to through Securely that an email was being passed from a student about a friendship that wasn't going very well and they were contemplating self-harm. This is really, really important stuff, and we're able to leverage technology to make sure that our students are physically and emotionally safe while they're with us or even at home.
I get to talk a little bit about emotional safety, so I'm actually very excited because you get to see all the shiny pictures that Lynette got to show, and you get to see all those things on the outside, but this is our shiny inside that you really don't get to see. That is really a cause in our growth within schools. So I really want to highlight here when I talk about what we do specifically at the high school in student supports. On the bottom, we never want anything to do with municipal or county truancy. So I'm really going to talk about kind of the areas that we do and everything that we take care of so we don't have to go that route with students or families. The first three on there I'm going to dive into in a couple slides here in a second. So I'll just highlight the mental health supports that we have throughout our district continue to grow, and the number of things that students can tap into, families can tap into. We're getting weekly different things that we are communicating with families and providing supports at the high school level. Parent meetings, we have thresholds that we hit, and we are continuing to have a lot of different parent meetings. Tis the season right now. I would say that we're kind of hitting that. We've been through our first term, and so we're kind of getting in our comfort zone with things. So I would say parent meetings are in full swings with that. And we've even dove into a few home visits this year, and especially throughout the months of January, February is when we really try to do that when the school year has kind of run its course, and trying to keep things fresh and clean for everyone, so we don't have to get to this municipal or county truancy level. Specifically, school culture is where it all starts. So I just really quickly want to highlight some areas that we specifically at the high school. Really important for us to have positive arrivals and departures. Students, when done correctly, should have 3 layers of staff members that they cross before they walk into their first class of the day. We have staff members at the door, we have staff members in the hallway, and then we have teachers at their door. So those are really quick check-ins for us just to give them positive greetings, but at the same time to maybe gauge somebody, whether they maybe had a tough night or we hadn't seen them in a couple of days, and so that we know who's crossing our paths and where they're at. The high school has an awesome ability with our pod and flex space purposes that our student flexibility and learning is not just take place. Maybe if you're like me in high school, we're just in our walls all the time. It's extremely flexible within our high school that there's instruction going on, but then there's collaboration outside of it in our pod and flex space, which is we use as a big leverage with our high school students. Specifically at the high school, the social interaction piece, as much as we maybe hear from students that they don't get enough, they have 75 minutes a day built in within our high school where they get to own their time. They get to own their social interaction, which we all know is a huge part of growth. not just within our classroom walls, but built into it's just the nature of our day. And then other things that you do get to see on the outside of the athletic teams, but then we offer 22 different athletic teams and 33 clubs on top of it. So 55 different opportunities that students have within our building to find identity, to find support groups, and really feel ownership within our building. Weekly attendance trends. So again, to make sure that we're proactive in all of these areas, that we don't have to get to the municipal or county area. I get daily reports at 7 a.m. like clockwork every single morning. I get a flag report from XPath that we have that recognizes trends for us. The basic things that we get with data. Specifically, we follow 2-week trends. So we have a pretty robust database that shows student trends. So if a student has missed multiple days, we're on that immediately. It's not just another one of our 1,100 plus students in the building, but we see that. Or conversely, if we've got a student that's struggled with attendance and we see this number climbing, it actually flags that and lets us know that too, so we can have some positive interactions. But the whole intent of this is to provide early support, to figure out if there are issues, whether that's within our walls, whether that's at home, whether it's with friends groups, and then to incorporate the interventions that we have in place, whether that's through counseling office or other supports that we have built in place at our high school. And with that, and talking about those supports, we are big into the coaching model. So what we do is we really try to build, and that is a big part of my job, is to make sure that we're building care and interest, that our students know that we are invested in their personal lives and time and space that our administrators at the high school. We build this core level of relationships with our students so that when we do need to hold high standards, those relationships, and we understand the interest levels or maybe past struggles that those students have already been visited and talked about. And so we can hold high standards. And so when we do need to make corrections, that we can do with encouragement. And the biggest thing on there, especially in my role, is that we provide actionable solutions, that there's touch points on goal setting and then constant meetings within that they know that we're here and we care about you. And we have checkpoints in place for our students. And then I put some examples of what we do on here, especially through my position as a student success coordinator. So with students, my whole goal is to improve our school culture. When culture is in a great place, as you all know, then we get attendance, we get purpose out of everything that we do, and supporting behaviors. A lot of one-on-one conversations. I put on there 25 plus daily check-ins. That's probably, to be honest, on the low end of things. And that's just an opportunity and time built in today to build relationships. So everything else that we have in place follows in line. And then it's same for the teachers. That I help with being advocate or support. And so if we have teachers that are struggling with students, we now have a database in place that we have teachers collaborating with specific students that have hit specific areas for us. And so if they have strategies that they've had that have worked with that student, that is all built into into that student. So if a teacher has a student walk into the room, they can go right to this database and see, oh, this has worked for this teacher. And so I'm going to try to have a connection here. Or if a student seems disengaged, we have a collaborative piece within our teachers. And so it's proactive measures when students walk into the room, especially now that we're changing terms and they have a new set of students in front of them. So as with everything, we're solution focused. We really try not to be reactionary with everything, but proactive. And so we can all be at our best every day.
Yes, this is a good example. Probably recognize how important attendance is, and what's interesting, just we really recognize this. There's a large percentage of our kids that attendance is not an issue, but there is a targeted group of kids where attendance is a chronic issue. And so the approaches that we take for students who are kind of encountering this sort of chronic absenteeism, there needs to be a special level of intervention, and Zach did a nice job of highlighting the way that we really want to work towards taking responsibility to supporting kids and finding ways and opting what is the thing that can support that child to come to school and grow and into they can be. Before moving towards this concept of now it's a municipal truancy ticket, or we're going to take you to company truancy. Those are cards that sometimes have to be played in specific situations, but the goal is to have a really active intervention piece before. So that hopefully that was some new information that the council didn't have. So
If I could just add, that's not a unique to our school district. It's just had a legislative here. And it's a statewide problem. It's a national problem. It's getting a little bit better. We're actually doing much better than most other school districts in the state. But school culture has shifted, and the way in which parents deal with their kids has shifted. So it's a big issue again. For a long time, I think we got started with that. Everybody shows up for school. It's something we need to really focus on now.
If I can ask, has that changed since the pandemic?
Yes. Pandemic really exacerbated, and I just was looking. I took a picture of a slide on Saturday. It shows it went way up, but it's been growing since about 2016 in the state. Started to come down, but we're still not back to statewide pre-pandemic levels.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. Now it's time for a 6-minute lightning round. So, is there anything people have questions for clarification of the two presentations?
I did have some questions. Thank you very much for all being here, and I'm very impressed with what you're doing for the community. My first question, I think you answered quite a bit of it. I was just going to ask what curriculum measures are in place to support students' mental health regarding social and emotional learning. Like, you talked a lot about different type of safety measures and whatnot. I was curious if there's anything else that's more unique just between the students. And then my second question is, I know that special needs teaching can have a high burn rate. Is there something that you're doing that's unique to address that for this district?
Want to take the second question?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, you're right. First of all, special education teachers are hard to come by, and they typically don't last very long in districts. And we've experienced some of that trouble here as well. Couple of things that we do is, first of all, we try and get to the hiring process really early so that we have the highest number of good applicants and candidates as possible. Thankfully, the school board last year supported a staffing plan that we proposed in February so we could hire in March. Even though we were hiring in March, which is about as early as districts do it, we probably averaged between 5 and 6 people per special education position. And we had 3.5 to fill. So our numbers of special needs students have been growing in the district for the last handful of years, probably up 80 students in the last 5 years. So it is a really important area. We have a very strong mentorship program in the district that is really intended to help people transition into their job and support them while they're in it. And it's a multi-year program. It's not just the mentor that provides that support, but it includes instructional coaches, myself as the Director of Human Resources, and also the building level administrator. So in the mentorship program, we're having regular monthly check-in meetings between the mentor and the new staff. We're providing release time so that they can shadow other teachers, or other teachers can shadow them. There's so much to learn by watching each other do our jobs. We don't get to do that very often. In education, the bell rings and we close the door and we're kind of left to ourselves. So that's been a huge part of it. And then we also have a strong teacher orientation program. So we welcome our new teachers. We get great support from the community, and we help them find their way early and often in hopes of hiring good people and then hanging on to them for a long time. I should say that our retention rate in the district was as high as it's been in the last handful of years. We're in the low 90%, which is really unheard of across the state of Wisconsin for certified staff.
Yeah, the second piece, just to Sean, to go back to that first question, where you kind of how we support interactions between students, is that
Social and emotional.
social and emotional?
A great example of that is just at our board meeting last night, our committee meeting, an overview of some of the education going on with reading. I think that's a great example of it, the new reading curriculum and how it really encourages children to read something, turn and talk to each other, dialogue with each other, being respectful, listening. Maybe you guys can speak to it more eloquently. Yeah. It's a great example.
I think that within the specific explicit instruction, teaching students how to interact with one another at a level that maybe we had expected was already understood or taught somewhere else, and now it's kind of embedded within the ELA curriculum, which is really positive. We have over the last 5 or 6 years added at the middle school a Connect course for 2 of the 3 grade levels. A Connect course, it's curriculum that's specifically around social students have organized and recognized in their brain responses to stresses and how to handle those things. I'm not going to speak eloquently to the specific curriculum, but that ad was really positive. And I would say there's always room for growth, right? And those are conversations that we have each year on how we can address those needs, both reactively through some of the co-located supports that we have through our counseling services, but also proactively by addressing it within the curriculum.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I would add real quick, I'm a former elementary principal. At that level, we have school counselors in all of our buildings who teach lessons multiple times a week to all of the classrooms. And a lot of what they do is help students to recognize emotions that they're feeling, how to process them and deal with them with their peers or with other stakeholders that they're working with. So that's a regular occurring thing at the elementary levels.
Well, thanks. I think that takes about a time so council can get ready for their council meeting. So appreciate everything, guys.
Okay, let's you next year.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing. You're probably your best special employee in history. It's not today.
Yeah.
Man, think about it for history. Yeah. I always see the kids in the community. I'm like, when I'm Bonnie at home, she make me stand against them. Look, yeah. Now, another thing, on the high school today, security stuff working to the student IT